Hey there, friends and enemies, Joper here again, and today I wanted to rank the 5 classes coming to Diablo 4 once the full game released, based off of all the information we have right now. Now, based off of the background gameplay, you can probably guess which one is going to be my number 1 class. However, I wanted to start off at number 5 with the Barbarian. Unfortunately, melee in this game is a little bit underwhelming. I feel like it just doesn't do as well clearing ads or with bosses because of the way the mechanics on a lot of bosses work and a lot of puddles of various damage types that will destroy you pretty quickly. Melee just doesn't feel as satisfying as I would like it to be. I hope it gets buffed or we have some options in the future to make Melee just significantly better than what it is now. I'm hopeful that once we have the full array of skills for the Barbarian and all the different legendary gear, like high level gear, we're going to be in a much different spot than we are now. That's my hope. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. That's kind of what they've said, the developers, when they've talked about the Barbarian as well. They know it's underpowered early on, but it just feels underwhelming. That's going to bring me to my number 4, and that is the Druid. The Druid is another one that I think is better than the Barbarian personally. There are some really fun broken builds you can make with the Druid. Just compared to some of the other classes, there's nothing it does exceptionally well. And the combat loop isn't as fun as I would have liked based off of my gameplay. I would love for it to be better over like later on, and I think that's going to be the case, just like with the Barbarian, where once we have all the different skills and abilities and mods and everything unlocked, it's going to be just way better than it is now. And potentially, looking back on it, I wouldn't be surprised if these two classes are incredibly strong and some of the builds are the best in the game once we have everything available. Unfortunately, for now, that is not the case, and that's why it's ranked where it is. Then I'm going to go with the Rogue. I personally don't enjoy the Rogue as much as I do the top 2 classes, but I know a lot of people really love it. There are some ways to do insane boss damage with the Rogue, and it feels like it's going to be just an insanely high DPS type of character. So, that being said, the gameplay loop with the Rogue is just not as fun for me as I find with the Sorceress or the Necromancer. That's why it lags a little bit behind. And it's just a personal preference on the way I play and all that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of summons. That's why I almost put the Druid at number 3, because the Wolves, with some of the synergies you get with Vulnerable and some of the different status effects, vibes with my playstyle a bit more. And I just wish it was a bit stronger. If that Druid was stronger, then it would replace the Rogue. Although I still will play the Rogue once the full game comes out. It's just not one that's necessarily my style as much as the other ones. Now, the top 2 was really hard. I loved both of them. However, I'm going to put the Sorceress at number 2. The Sorcerer was my first character that I played in the beta, and I absolutely loved it. The fire hydras are broken. There's just so much you can do with it. I beat the world boss with it for the first time. It's just a lot of fun, and there's a lot of synergy with its abilities. You can make absolutely broken builds, and it feels like there's a lot of variety, right? You can mix and match with like Frost and different types of abilities like fire and whatnot, and it just feels like it all comes together to perform very well. You don't have to specialize in one singular damage type, and I like that a lot. So that's why the Sorceress is number 2. Again, I would love this one. It was my favorite one. I thought it was going to be my favorite overall for the beta until the Necromancer came out. You can summon so many different undead creatures. It's insane. It's absolutely broken. The build potential on a variety of builds, pure summons, blight summons, exploding like there's just so many ways to build the Necromancer and make it absolutely busted. And there are times where you don't have to lift a finger. I know that's not everyone's favorite style of gameplay, but for me, having all these minions roaming around just feels like I'm in a bigger action fight. I have a lot of things happening all at one time. I've got my spells that I can cast at the same time as well. And the gameplay loop for me personally is just very enjoyable. And I just love it. I think it's one that I'll probably main once the full game releases. Necromancer is probably going to be my first class I start with. I'm going to run through the campaign with that, level up, get some builds going, and then swap over to maybe Sorceress, or I might switch to Druid change it up a little bit to have a class that feels a lot different. So those are my top 5 classes. I think they might also be the top 5 classes in terms of overall strength as well. Although the rogue and the sorcerer, those can be flip flop for sure, because I know the Rogue has some really OP things right now. Again, once the full game releases, I think we're going to see a very different meta and strength of characters and classes than we're seeing right now. So that's just something you definitely have to consider as we're going into full launch. The gameplay at the highest level is not going to be what it is at level 25. So definitely remember that and understand that there's a long way to go before we know what classes are going to be the best, and your favorite now might not be your favorite in the future. So that's just my personal opinion. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more content like this from me. I am loving Diablo so far. It's definitely my most anticipated game of 2023 right now, based off of the fact that I'm going to put an insane amount of hours into this. I know it. I already love it. I had to keep myself back from playing far too much of the beta when I was jumping in because of how good it was and how much fun I was having. So anyway, my name is Jopa. I hope you have a good one. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more of that Diablo content going forward. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.